2024 was a great year if you liked playing a lot of very good video games. And boy, did I play a lot of very good video games. And even still, I'm walking away feeling like I missed out on a bunch of stuff. There are games I should have finished that I didn't finish. There are games I didn't even check out that I wish I had checked out. It's amazing to look back and also know that there wasn't really like a Breath of the Wild or an Elden Ring. Well, there was kind of an Elden Ring, but you know what I mean. There wasn't like a clear front runner as to what the game of the year was going to be across like every media outlet. Every once in a while, there's a game that comes out. It's like, okay, cool. Everyone knows that this is going to be number one, but what's your 2 through 10? I'm more interested in that. 2024 wasn't like that at all, though. Every person's list is like an individual personality test. You get to learn a lot about these people based on what made the 1 through 10 slot, and even more about what didn't even make it into the number 10 slot. I think if you're a person who subscribed to this channel, first of all, thank you for doing that. But if you're a person who subscribed to this channel, you've probably seen my review of UFO 50. UFO 50 was a game that I really loved. Believe it or not, it's going to show up on this list. But I think in honor of UFO 50, I wanted to expand out the top 10 format, at least for this year. Who knows if this will be a yearly thing, but at least for this year, because I played so many games, I want to highlight so many games, I wanted to expand this out past the top 10. Also, if you just want to hear the top 10, you can go listen to Into the Aether. It's a low-key video game podcast. We have like a 7-hour episode all about our games of the year. You can go listen to that. But if you want to hear about number 11 through number 50, you've come to the right place, because this is going to be the Wavelengths 50 best games of 2024. I also want to mention that I did actually write the list out. I wrote a script for this over the course of like the last 2 weeks, but just like in any piece of media you've ever seen where somebody's about to give a speech at like a wedding or something, and then they look out into the crowd and then they crumple up the speech and they're like, I'm going to speak from the heart. I've just decided right now I'm not going to use the script at all. We're just going to speak from the heart. So here we go. Let's wing it. Let's wing a top 50 list together. Number 50 is Warhammer 40,000 Space Marine 2. There's a lot of numbers in that title. This is my first ever experience with anything Warhammer related. I'll be honest, I've heard not so great things about the fandom, just like online, and decided to stay away for a long time. And I'm glad that I didn't in the case of Space Marine 2. I'll give a shout out to Chase, a friend who hosts Video Game Podtimism, who turned me onto this game, and we played a bunch of multiplayer together, and we had an amazing time. This game taught me so much about how much other media has pulled from the visual design of Warhammer 40,000. And also, I just didn't know that Warhammer was like camp. I think that's intentional. I think the game is supposed to be really funny. I think Warhammer is supposed to be really funny, but like the grimdark thing, I always thought was kind of like edgelordy and like a little lame, if I'm being honest, but it turns out it's like very funny and it's very campy. And that plus this combat was a blast. And I just need to shout out, and this is not a thing I'll shout out a lot because it's not a thing I usually shout out a lot, but like graphically, this game was beautiful. I was like blown away just by the visual design of this game, but also the environments and the textures and everything they had going on was like really, really, really impressive. So shout out to number 50, Warhammer 40,000 Space Marine 2. Number 49 is Star Wars Hunters, a free-to-play mobile game that's kind of like a take on Overwatch. I imagine this is a game that won't make a lot of lists, which is why it's fun to be doing a top 50, but I had a surprising amount of fun with Star Wars Hunters. I think any game in which I'm able to play as 3 Jawas hiding in one trench coat, like I'm gonna have a good time. And in general, the like 1 to 2 weeks I spent just kind of dipping into and out of this game, specifically on the Ein Odin, like an Android handheld, was really fun. I had a like surprisingly good time with it. And then I put it down, I didn't play it anymore, but like those 2 weeks, I had a good time. I'm sure they've added a bunch of characters and stuff. Maybe it's worth checking out. Maybe it's not anymore. Maybe the monetization has overtaken everything, but my brief time with Star Wars Hunters earned it a place on the list, so shout out, number 49. Number 48 is Sonic X Shadow Generations. This is the year of Shadow the Hedgehog. He just made a cinematic debut in Sonic the Hedgehog 3, now in theaters. A movie I haven't seen yet, but probably will if I'm being honest with myself. But anyway, Sonic Generations, it's a game that came out a while ago, and when they ported it to modern consoles, they decided to add a new standalone story mode starring Shadow called Shadow Generations. And I mean, it's like the first great 3D Sonic game in a long time, in my opinion at least. As a person who grew up playing the Sega Genesis, loving Sonic the Hedgehog, and then slowly over the course of time, specifically in like the early 3D era, falling out of love with Sonic the Hedgehog as a franchise, it was really, really, really exciting to play Shadow Generations and be like, oh my god, I think they figured it out. It's all about the different environments on display. It's about the different ideas that are at play, the different movement options, the different like combat options even. I just found it to be really compelling, constantly evolving, and a surprisingly great 3D Sonic game that in a lot of ways to me feels like kind of a blueprint for the future for the franchise. Even though you're playing a Shadow in this thing, I think you could apply a lot of its learnings to Sonic and have a great game going forward. Number 47 is the Pokemon trading card game Pocket. My last video was about how I was surprised at how good this was. And I'll be honest, I'm still enjoying it. I'm still checking it out like, twice a day as advertised. But I will say that now I'm at a point where like I just have a couple cards left to collect in each of the different packs. And they're not really releasing new cards very quickly, so I'm kind of starting to bail from this game. I feel the inklings of the like, I'm gonna not have notifications on for this anymore. I will say I did have a great time going to Paris, of all places, and constantly taking pictures of the Apple Watch notification telling me I can open up a booster pack while I was in front of like the Louvre or something. It just felt deeply silly to be like, here's some of the greatest art of all time. I'm going to open a Pokemon trading card game pack right now. But beyond that, I don't know. Pokemon trading card game 47. I had fun with it. I'm kind of still having fun with it. Ask me again in a week. Number 46 is a Ranger, a role-puzzling adventure. You just need to watch a trailer for this one to understand how special it is, but it's a game where you're moving through the world, and as you move through the world, the rest of the world moves with you, and that is both a really compelling and interesting puzzle mechanic that kind of has elements of like the Sokoban genre, like the box-pushing genre, but also infuses a lot of character and life into it. You play as a character named Gemma, who's whole life is kind of defined by the fact that she's the only one who moves the world when she moves, and because of that, people are like afraid to see her coming because she's just gonna like destroy your bedroom if she walks into it, for example. The ways in which they're able to marry both the mechanics and what they're exploring in terms of a person who doesn't feel wanted or feels like they're a burden on others, I think is really special, and kind of adds to the experience of solving puzzles because you slowly start to feel yourself getting better, and in so doing make Gemma feel better about herself. It's a great game. It's also available on Netflix games, so if you want to like play it on your phone, you can just go do that, which rocks. It's great on your phone. Speaking of the Sokoban genre, number 45 is Isles of Sea and Sky, a game that hooked me immediately after I read Grayson Morley's great piece about the game on Polygon.com, but just saw that the art style was largely Game Boy Color inspired, and that it also kind of evolved the Sokoban genre into making it a little bit more of an open world affair. So instead of just level by level by level making your way through the world, Isles of Sea and Sky is kind of a Link's Awakening style open world where every single screen contains its own puzzle and sometimes multiple puzzles. And sometimes by solving puzzles in one area of the world, you're also solving puzzles in other areas of the world. It's a really compelling game to just kind of chip away at. I found this to be perfect on the Steam Deck in particular. So if you're looking for a game to just like play while you're watching Gossip Girl or something on HBO, which is what I'm doing, Isles of Sea and Sky, great game for it. Number 44 is One Button Bosses, a game whose name kind of describes exactly what it is, but every single level is a boss fight. It's kind of Super Hexagon inspired, where you are a little ship just kind of traveling on a straight line that just kind of wraps around a boss who is shooting at you, and you just have one button to move back and forth and avoid the bullet hell that is coming at you. It is great. The ways in which they continue to add and layer new mechanics onto your one button over time is surprisingly enthralling. I love the art direction. I love the music. I love everything about this game. It's really fun. Another great one on the Steam Deck if you have one, or a handheld PC or whatever. You're gonna have a good time with it. It's One Button Bosses. Number 43 is Age of Mythology Retold. This is a game I think we all knew was coming. As soon as Microsoft started remaking the Age of Empires games, the first thing that everyone posted in the comments was like, okay, cool, great. But like, when is Age of Mythology coming? I loved Age of Mythology as a kid. I specifically remember getting it for Christmas one year and then just spending the entirety of a white Christmas just sitting in the basement computer room and just playing Age of Mythology like until it was nighttime. I was glad to revisit it now. It is still good. I think it's nice to go back and visit a game that you played as a kid and walk away being like, hey, that still rips. and Age of Mythology Retold is one of those games. If you haven't played it before, you'll still have a good time with it. So worth checking out regardless of your nostalgia levels on it. Number 42 is a game that I really, really enjoyed, and it's worth mentioning also, like, I liked a lot of these games, and there are games that didn't even make the top 50 that I still liked. Just a lot of really good games this year. So anyway, number 42 is Another Crab's Treasure, a game that's whole pitch is basically what if Dark Souls, but you're a hermit crab, and it not only manages to completely nail that pitch, but also adds a bunch of features that I would just love to see in another Souls-like going forward. Specifically, the way you are asked to constantly be switching shells, and that those shells have their own latent stats and abilities attached to them, feels a lot like when you're walking through a corridor in Halo and you run out of bullets in one gun, so you swap to another gun that only has 3 bullets, and you use that, and onward and onward and onward. Another Crab's Treasure is kind of asking the same thing of you, where you will just use a shell until it's used up and then find another one very quickly and then keep on fighting. I think that that's a really interesting mechanic that doesn't need to be shell based, obviously, but can be applied to a lot of other Souls-like. So shout out to this game for both nailing the thing that it wanted to do, which is just be kind of a cute Souls-like, and also for introducing some really, really stellar mechanics, and also some of the best boss music of all time, or at least of 2024. Number 41 is Botany Manor, which is kind of an 1800s entry into something like The Witness or Antechamber. It's a first-person puzzle game where you are just walking through this beautiful manor and trying to solve a bunch of puzzles to understand and unlock and be able to propagate some fantasy plants. It's just a really chill time. It runs great on the Switch. I think you should check it out. It's the first game by Balloon Studios, and I'm really excited to see what they have coming up next if this is their first game. Number 40 is Lorelei and the Laser Eyes, which is a game that I'm both surprised to see this low on the list, but also happy to see on the list at all. 2019's Sayonara Wild Hearts is one of my favorite games of all time. I think it was deeply impactful in my life and in the lives of a lot of my friends. So I think I did go into Lorelei with a lot of expectations. I really wanted it to be something that it ended up not being. And I think over the course of my first time sitting down to play it, I kind of walked away being a little bit disappointed, but on repeated visits, starting the game over from the beginning and seeing a little bit more of what the game was doing and kind of beating it on its own terms, I started to really appreciate what's going on. I think it's beautiful visually and aesthetically, which is, I think, not too surprising coming from Simogo. They are just beautiful designers in general, but I think this game has a lot more to offer me, and I think this is a game I'm going to be happy is on the list when I eventually check it out and really give it its due at some point in the future. Number 39 is one that I think some people will be surprised to see on my list in particular, but it's Call of Duty Black Ops 6. I was a big Call of Duty fan back in the day. Call of Duty 1 in particular, I used to actually play competitively when I was in middle school, which is weird to say. But over the course of time, eventually Call of Duty just strayed further and further away from a game that I wanted to be playing. I think the last time I played a Call of Duty game and really enjoyed it was sometime in the Xbox 360 era, and that's mostly because all of my friends were playing. But it was really at the behest of a bunch of my coworkers that I checked out Call of Duty Black Ops 6. They were like, hey, I know you haven't played one of these in a long time, but you should come check it out. And boy, were they right, because they just nailed this one. Campaign-wise feels so fresh. Every single level feels like its own unique game in some ways. The game that it reminded me the most of, and I know this is almost sacrilegious to say unless you know how much I love Titanfall 2, but it feels a lot like Titanfall 2 to me, where just every single idea, it's just played out to the exact amount that it needs to be before moving on. It's the only game where you can do some espionage at a Bill Clinton rally. I love the zombies mode. I had a great time playing the zombies mode with a bunch of friends. Honestly, even the multiplayer is really fun to just solo queue into. I was really surprised by Black Ops 6. It's a good game, and I loved texting a bunch of other people in the game's media sphere and being like, hey, are you playing this? And everyone being like, it's surprisingly good, right? You can't write off Call of Duty. It's the biggest thing on the planet, at least until Grand Theft Auto 6 comes out. Another 6. Number 38 is Neva, which is the follow-up to 2018's Grease. Grease was a side-scrolling puzzle platformer that is one of the most beautiful games probably ever made. Neva, kind of no exception. It's amazing what this team is capable of doing from an art direction perspective. But in Neva, you are tasked with kind of raising this white wolf antlered creature named Neva over the course of 1 year, and it is brutal and sad and hopeful and just so emotionally resonant. Would you be surprised to learn that it's about something? It's a good video game. I think that you should play it. I think you should play all these games, but Neva's really good. Number 37 is Deep Rock Galactic Survivor. Is it Survivor or Survivors? It's Survivor. One Survivor, and it's you. You're the survivor. I'll be honest, Vampire Survivors was a game that like didn't really capture my heart of hearts for a while. It took a while for me to understand the appeal of it, but then when it did, like, man, I locked into that thing. Deep Rock Galactic Survivor feels to me like the first kind of Vampire Survivors clone that like really adds something very, very special by just adding what's special about Deep Rock Galactic, the game that it is a spin-off of. In Deep Rock Galactic Survivor, you are just mining through the earth and running away from bugs, and as you shoot bugs, you're getting experience, but as you mine through the earth, you're collecting precious resources, which are then used as your in-between run upgrade materials, which I think is really, really, really smart. There's just so much to enjoy about this game, and I have found myself already playing a lot more of it than I ever did with Vampire Survivors. Another game I'll shout out for the Steam Deck. The Steam Deck really kind of like captured me again this year, and I'll talk a little bit more about that at some point because it's actually moved me away from the Steam Deck. But Deep Rock Galactic Survivor, a great game again for just like chilling out while you have like something on the TV. But you know, if you look away, you're gonna die. So maybe don't watch something else. Maybe don't do both. Just play Deep Rock Galactic Survivor. Number 36 is Thank Goodness You're Here, which is a game that is just like funny from beginning to end. I think that's like mainly the success of it, is that the joke never really gets tiring. You play as like a little guy who's tasked with going to talk to somebody and then immediately getting sidetracked and just helping out the community in like a very, very, very British place. I don't know. This is one of those games that I don't even know how to talk about because I don't want to give anything away. I just think it has some of the funniest things I've ever seen in a video game. There are multiple moments where I laughed out loud, and I think in particular the fact that they keep it really short was really smart of them. So it never overstays its welcome. Number 35, another very funny game, Fish-like, which I have a video about on this channel. But Fish-like is a WarioWare style game where every single micro game has something to do with fish. At least that's what they say, like on Steam, if you buy it on Steam. I think that this game does a couple things very, very brilliantly. Number one is that it has two control modes. One of them is just called Fish-like, where it doesn't tell you what method of interaction you're supposed to be using. So WarioWare games generally are noted by their methods of interaction. So the original WarioWare is just like the D-pad and the A button usually. WarioWare Touched is the touchscreen on the DS. Fish-like uses the mouse and keyboard, which creates a whole host of problems when you have literally a fraction of a second to understand what you're supposed to be doing. It is constantly funny, very difficult. I had an amazing time playing it. And actually, in the video that I have on this channel, I didn't show myself finishing it, but the end of the game is amazing. I also think it's like under $5 and available on Steam. It's worth checking out. That's Fish-like. Number 34 is Rusty's Retirement, which is an idle game that is brilliant in that while it's playing itself in the background while you're not playing it technically, it is persistently visible at the bottom of your screen at all times. So it's available for Mac and Windows, and you just have this little robot named Rusty who is just tending to like a robot farm. And while you're like, for example, writing the script for this video that you would then throw out in 2 weeks, you could be playing Rusty's Retirement and just watching Rusty like go about his day and do some stuff. If you are a person who is absolutely toe-to-tip riddled with ADHD like me, having another thing to kind of focus on while you're also focusing on something else is really helpful. Have you picked up on that yet from the many times I've told you to play the Steam Deck and watch Gossip Girl? Number 33 is Ember Word. This is a game where somebody sent me a video of Northern Lion playing it, I believe, and within literally 10 minutes, I had downloaded the game and sat down to like record my own Let's Play of it for the Into the Aether YouTube channel. Ember Word is a tower defense game that also incorporates some deck building and like Tetris elements, in that your deck is actually made up of Tetronimo blocks that you are placing down to block the path of the enemies coming to, you know, take out your tower. This game absolutely rules. I think it's an early access, and even in that state, it really very quickly became one of my most played games of the year on Steam. I think it's going to be like a bigger game next year, and if they ever launch it on other platforms besides just PC, I think it'll capture the hearts and minds of many people. Number 32 is Tactical Breach Wizards. This is a game by Tom Francis, who made one of my favorite games of 2013, Gunpoint. Tactical Breach Wizards is a game where you are playing as a group of wizards who are in a SWAT team in like kind of a modern era. And I think the brilliance of this game is twofold. Number one is that mechanically it's great. It's kind of an XCOM style tactics game, but also it's very funny, and it knows that the concept is very silly, and it leans into that over and over and over again. I think going as far as having so many of the abilities just kind of blast people out of windows. It is constantly funny to be blasting like a necromancer out of a window. This game absolutely rocks. It's great. It feels like an instant classic. Number 31 is Cryptmaster, which is a game I saw at PAX East this year. Within seconds, I was like, this is brilliant. I'm going to wishlist this. I'm going to buy this immediately as soon as it launches. And guess what? It's really good. It's a really good game. I think the best way to pitch it is probably Mavis Beacon teaches typing, but also a dungeon crawler. As you make your way through this like very beautifully designed black and white dungeon, the Cryptmaster, the titular Cryptmaster, is like kind of taunting you, and you can type things in to talk back to him. But also the act of typing is how you like move through the world and attack and get new items and everything. The game is about uncovering the abilities that your 4 warriors have. It's really, really compelling, and I think one of the cooler games I played this year, definitely. Number 30 is Natsumon 20th Century Summer Kid, which I actually have my copy of right here. Natsumon is a spiritual sequel in a lot of ways to Boku no Natsu Yasumi, which is a franchise of games in Japan where you play as a kid named Boku running through the Japanese countryside in the 70s and 80s and just like generally having a good time. There's no combat, and you're just kind of uncovering the story of like the family you're staying with and everything that's going on. It's a beautiful series, but Natsumon, I think, is really brilliant in that it kind of takes a step back and realizes that although that was very novel in, you know, the 90s and early 2000s to be making games that like didn't have any combat and focus specifically on like putting you in the head of a kid. A lot of games are kind of like that now. I think the indie scene in particular and like the idea of cozy games, quote unquote, has really kind of exploded in a way that almost necessitated Natsumon or Boku no Natsu Yasumi as a franchise to kind of need to shift into something else. And Natsumon, I think, is a really brilliant idea in that it takes a lot of elements from open world design. So whereas Boku no Natsu Yasumi was a Resident Evil style game, not that there were zombies, but Resident Evil in that there were fixed backgrounds and you're running between all these fixed backgrounds, Natsumon is a like fully open world. It incorporates like the Breath of the Wild climbing system and energy meter and stuff like that. It's really fun. If you think that you'd be into this game, you should definitely check it out. It's great on Switch. It's great on everything else. It's good. Number 29 is Visions of Mana. And let me just say at the top, I think it's really horrible that this team was laid off literally the day they released the game, because what they've managed to do in terms of taking this franchise that's been around for a long time and revitalizing it, bringing it back in a way that felt modern and fresh, and in my eyes was one of the most visually gorgeous games released this year. I've gone back and I've tried to play the other Mana games, and they've never really connected with me in particular, but Visions like really clicked pretty immediately. I loved the demo. When I picked up the full game, I was like just thrilled by how high the quality bar was the entire time. I hope that there's a world in which more Mana happens, although I'm kind of like reticent to want to support that, knowing that the company that owns it, I think, which is Tencent right now, would do something like this to the team that made a great one. So blessing and a curse. Number 29. Number 28 is Helldivers 2, a game that I'm like thrilled but also surprised to see take off in the way that it did. I really liked the first Helldivers. I played it a lot on the PlayStation Vita. I'm like a real PlayStation Vita sicko, and my other friends who had Vitas, we all played Helldivers together and had a great time. You know, it's a isometric or more top-down game that is very similar to the game that you're playing now, but just with a completely different camera perspective. So when they decided and announced that Helldivers 2 would be kind of a third-person big action game, honestly, my first thought was that it was a little bit too close to like the PlayStation Studios style of gameplay. But man, they made something just like thrillingly weird and fun. And I hope this is a lesson to PlayStation Studios about the kinds of games that they greenlight, because Helldivers 2 feels like a big swerve from, I think, everything else they were trying to make, as they had greenlit, 11 or 12 live service games. Helldivers 2 is going to be like one of the only ones that actually sees the light of day. You know, Concord, obviously, famously being another one of them. A lot of those games, at least based on the leaks that we've seen, seem to have just kind of been playing by all these tried and true rules, and Helldivers 2 feels like a real step back and like a kind of reinvention of what a live service game can be. And when you see so many people rallying around that, I think it means something. I think in a lot of ways, and I'll maybe talk about this later, a lot of this year was about lessons for PlayStation Studios, and Helldivers 2 is one of the bigger ones, I think, in terms of the massive success that it ended up being. Number 27 is Dragon Age the Veilguard, and not to like just totally steal the line from The Social Network, but they should drop it should just be Dragon Age Veilguard. Anyway, I would consider myself to be Dragon Age curious. I've played a bunch of Origins. I played a bunch of Dragon Age 2. I played a bunch of Dragon Age Inquisition. Not as much Inquisition as the other two. I always almost like it. I always want to be a bigger BioWare fan than I am even. I loved the Mass Effect Legendary Edition. I played through all 3 of those games, and they immediately just kind of became canonized as some of the most important games in my life. And I have always wanted to have that experience with Dragon Age, and I just kind of haven't. I think Origins is the closest I ever got. I think what's interesting is even though I didn't really consider myself a Dragon Age fan, I went into Veilguard expecting something, and I think expectation will always get in the way and will always kind of muddy your experience with the thing. And the first 5 hours of my experience with Veilguard was one where I was mostly disappointed that it didn't meet the made up concocted game that was in my head. And I think that's true of a lot of people who played Veilguard. They walked in expecting one game and got something very different. It wasn't until I finished the first act and got into the second act that Veilguard really started to click for me, and I started to get glimpses of what I've always wanted out of a Dragon Age game. Do I think that it is the best one? I don't know. I didn't finish it, if I'm being honest. I haven't finished any of them. But I will say that alongside Origins, it's probably the one that I've gotten the most out of, emotionally and from a mechanics standpoint. I think there's a lot more on offer here than I had initially given it credit for. And I just really love having experiences like this where you can change your mind so dramatically about something. I think half of doing this, half of playing this many games and having a YouTube channel like this and a podcast like Into the Aether is just about being able to challenge your preconceived notions, break outside of your own boundaries, stop listening to the 400 reviews that you read and make up your own mind about something. And sure, you may fall in line with those 400 reviews that you read, but you also might come to a completely different conclusion and learn more about yourself and what you like as a person. Wouldn't that be nice to grow and change? I think so. It's Dragon Age the Veilguard. I don't know why it turned into that, but that's what it is. That's the Veilguard. No, just Veilguard. No, Number 26, this one is cheating. This is Hades 2. Again, a game that's in early access. Not that an early access game is cheating, but Hades 2 is definitely going to be on my Game of the Year list next year also. I actually had to stop myself from playing more of this. I played so much of it, literally the minute early access dropped, that I ended up making it to... I won't actually say how far I've gone because I don't want to give anything away. But I made it further than I thought I was going to and told myself, I need to stop and wait until the full thing is out. I was really back and forth about if I was even going to play this game in early access. I loved Hades 1, obviously. Pretty much everyone did. I think it's one of the best games ever made, if I'm being honest with myself and with you, dear viewer. And Hades 2 was kind of always going to be a shoo-in. The idea of playing it in early access before it was fully finished was something that I just kind of wasn't very interested in, especially hearing from people who played Hades 1 while it was in early access. What changed my mind was the initial post from Supergiant that said that the amount of content in Hades 2's early access was similar to the amount of content that was in the final release of Hades 1, meaning that there was entire Hades 1 worth of game already present there, and everything else was just taking it over the line into being something even bigger. So I checked it out. I had an amazing time with it. I think that what they've done mechanically is fascinating in terms of how you're going to need to change your style of play. Again, I'm going to try not spoil it too much, but you really need to change your style of play a lot. Being good at Hades 1 doesn't immediately mean you're going to be good at Hades 2, and I think that's really exciting, because if you're making a sequel to a roguelike like Spelunky 2 or Rogue Legacy 2, recapturing that feeling of I'm playing this for the first time is really difficult, and Hades 2 manages to do that both narratively and mechanically, and man, am I excited for more of that thing. Number 25 is Mars After Midnight, which is a game for the Playdate. I got a Playdate in 2024 and really, really, really loved my time with it. Unfortunately, a lot of the games that I played didn't count because they didn't come out in 2024. If you want a list, I have a list on my backlog profile. I'll put that in the show notes. But I have a list of all the great Playdate games that I've played and all the ones that I'd recommend. But Mars After Midnight is a new game by Lucas Pope, the creator of Papers, Please and Return to the Obra Dinn, in which you play as an alien running kind of like a community help center. on Mars, and the ways in which they use the crank and the buttons and the D-pad, I think is brilliant. There's a lot more game here than you'd think, and there's a lot more like incredible art and humor and heart even happening in Mars After Midnight that I was expecting, just based off the brief glimpses I'd seen in trailers and stuff. Mars After Midnight rocks. The playdate is amazing. I'm so excited for the second season of games, and I love the stuff that I played there. I just need a backlight on it. Everyone says this, and I think Panic has to know that everyone just wants a backlight on the playdate. It's actually amazing that nobody's done, maybe somebody has. I'm going to say this out loud, though. It's amazing that nobody's done like a custom mod or like something that you can buy online and mod yourself to add a backlight to the playdate screen. Maybe somebody's done that already. I'm going to look that up at some point. If you know of that, let me know. But I think maybe I'll just wait for the playdate 2 if they make one with a backlight. That'd be nice. Number 24 is Shin-Chan, Shiro in the Cold Town. Another game that I have a full review of up on this channel that you can go watch. Here's the thesis, though. In a world where Boku no Natsuyasumi has split out into 2 diverging paths, one of which is Natsuman, which I talked about before, and the other one being the Shin-Chan games, it's nice to see Shiro in the Cold Town kind of take a bigger risk in terms of being about something. While the previous game, Me and the Professor on Summer Vacation, was kind of a Boku no Natsuyasumi game that just had some, like, magical realism attached to it. There were dinosaurs and time loops and, you know, an evil professor and stuff like that. Shiro in the Cold Town is about, like, capitalism and community and routine, both good and bad. It's a fascinating game. You know, how much of that stuff really bubbles to the surface while you're playing it? I don't know. It's kind of there if you want it to be and not there if you don't want it to be. If you want it to just be like a cute game where you're just running around as this kid, like getting into trouble and catching bugs and fish and stuff, like you can have a great time with it. You could also scratch a little bit deeper into that thing and come out the other end with some like profound ideas. And that's, I think, a cool direction to take the franchise and a cool way to differentiate it. I like it. You can watch the review and then you'll hear how much I like it. Number 23 is Paper Mario: The Thousand-Year Door, the remake for the Nintendo Switch. I'm kind of surprised that this exists in the first place. Like, I know it was heavily rumored for a long time, but I'm surprised from like a Nintendo standpoint that this game exists, because all we've really heard, you know, rumblings and rumors, I guess, but all we've really heard about Paper Mario as a franchise over the past couple of years, and the past couple of entries in particular, is that Nintendo has such a stranglehold, such an iron grip on Mario and on that intellectual property that we've gotten to a place where like Goombas can't wear hats and stuff anymore. You know, they need to invent entirely new characters. So like Mario and Luigi Brothership, for example, they have, you know, all of these people who exist as like plugs and outlets and like electrical equipment because they can't, you know, put a Koopa on a skateboard or something in 2024. It was interesting to see them go back and re-release Paper Mario and the Thousand-Year Door, and I kind of hope, fingers crossed, that it indicates some kind of internal rethinking of that iron grip, because they did an amazing job with this remake, and everyone I know who loves the original game on the GameCube and went and played this game again loved what they did here. And I just played Thousand-Year Door for the first time last year and walked away from it. Or was that this year? I don't even remember. I played it pretty recently, and then I jumped back into it again for the Switch remake, and I had a really good time with it. I think Thousand-Year Door is probably the best Mario RPG in a lot of ways. I think Superstar Saga comes in a close second. It's just very tight. It's a very tight game, Superstar Saga. I think it's really good. But anyway, Thousand-Year Door, the remake for the Nintendo Switch, it's very good. I'm glad to see it exist. I'm glad to see this game continue forward. And shout out to Vivian, confirmed trans. You'd love to see it. And number 22 is Unicorn Overlord, a new game by Vanillaware, the creators of one of my favorite games from the past 5 years, 13 Sentinels, Aegis Rim. That was a visual novel where you play as 13 characters who are stuck in a real sci-fi story, and they're piloting big mechs, and there's kind of a real-time strategy thing going on. It's an amazing game. Narratively, mechanically, there's just a lot going on in 13 Sentinels that I think is like absolutely brilliant. Unicorn Overlord is basically just a love letter to like Final Fantasy Tactics, Tactics Ogre, Fire Emblem. It's like, what if Vanillaware made a Fire Emblem? And that might be enough to get you like off the couch or wherever you are and going to buy that thing. They nailed it though. If you like any of those franchises at all, Unicorn Overlord is the closest you will find to one of those things in 2024. I also need to give a shout out to my fiance Persia, who played this game twice in 2024 on increasingly harder difficulties, which I thought was remarkable. Unicorn Overlord absolutely rocks. It's amazing that they can make games that look like this. There are like 60 or 100, I don't know, somewhere in there, unlockable characters. They just did such a good job with this thing. Number 21 is Fields of Mystria, another game that's in early access, and one that really, really, really took me by surprise, because I like Stardew Valley more than I love Stardew Valley. I think Stardew Valley is pretty good. I played like 30 or 40 hours of it. Like, I played it enough and enjoyed it enough, but I definitely don't play it as much as a lot of people play Stardew Valley. And honestly, most of the Stardew Valley likes that I've played since that game was released, I think the closer they get to being Stardew Valley, the less I like them, which is why I've gravitated more towards games like the Rune Factory franchise or Harvestella, for example. Games that they don't need to incorporate more discrete combat, but I think that like explore different genres and ideas than just like I'm farming and I'm romancing these people. Fields of Mystria is an odd case because it does get very close to what Stardew Valley did, but improves upon it in a lot of ways by setting it in a fantasy world and using those fantasy trappings to basically sand off all of the edges of all the things I didn't really like about Stardew Valley very much. For example, you can get a spell at a certain point that just replenishes all of your energy. So, you know, if you've ever been on level 49 of the caves and you're like, I need to make it to level 50 or else my progress doesn't save and I'm about to run out of energy, pop, there goes the spell. You can make it to level 50. Isn't that great? I also think Fields of Mystria just does a remarkable job with its community and its town and its members. It feels more like you are part of a existing community in Fields of Mystria than it does in Stardew Valley. Not that you need to compare them one-to-one, but I think Fields of Mystria really asks you to compare them one-to-one in a lot of ways, and including things like a quest board where members of the town will literally put up, like, I need this thing to get done, and using that not to just, like, get resources for yourself or get money or whatever, but to literally improve the standing of the town in the world, makes you feel more connected to the town and the world because of it. I think that what Fields of Mystria has on offer in the early access period is already probably my favorite farm sim, if I'm being completely honest. And I think if this thing releases on the Nintendo Switch or the Nintendo Switch 2, for example, in 2025, it's gonna be huge. It is like, that game is gonna blow up, and I'm really excited to watch that happen. And it's fun to be so early on in the process and to see it as it is now and be like, damn. Number 20 is web fishing. Web fishing is like some of the most fun I've had this year. It is straight up just a like chat room. It's a virtual chat room where you and a bunch of friends can just hang out in this space and go fishing together. You look like an Animal Crossing character. It's kind of got an Animal Crossing-esque art style, and there are a lot of secrets. And I don't really want to say much more than that, but I do think that web fishing is an extremely funny game, an extremely dense game, despite, I think, being only $5, and also, you know, what it looks like when you're looking at the Steam listing. It doesn't seem like a game that's going to be extremely deep, but it very much is. And the time that I spent with my friends in web fishing this year is some of the most fun I've had playing a video game this year. You gotta get some friends. You gotta play web fishing. You have to. It is. I implore you to do it. It is so worth it. Number 19 is Nintendo World Championships NES Edition, a game that I played so much of and then didn't bring up on Into the Aether at all this year for some reason. It turns out if you add a global leaderboard and a personal best timer to how quickly can you get the first mushroom in Super Mario Brothers, or how quickly can you beat all of Super Mario Brothers 2 The Lost Levels, or how quickly can you beat this boss in The Legend of Zelda, or can you make it to the end of this Kid Icarus level without dying, etc., etc. I'm there. I'm like totally in, and I will just sit there and like grind out a personal best over and over and over again. I think it does what Neon White did really well, which is that it's not asking me to become a speedrunner, but it's giving me the joys of being a speedrunner without needing to like learn an entire game from A to B. I think it's amazing what speedrunners are capable of. I love watching ADGQ and SGDQ acronyms. I love watching those events every single year, and I always think to myself, man, I don't have the capacity to learn a game like that. But Nintendo World Championships NES Edition like really kind of gave me that thrill in a lot of ways. It's just so cool that Nintendo did this at all, and I would love to see them do this with other consoles. Like, I would love a Super Nintendo version of this. I would love an N64 version of this. I don't see them doing it because, you know, the Nintendo World Championships idea is very much like rooted in the NES era, but I think it's amazing that they made it, and they did a really great job, and I had so much fun with it. Number 18 is Animal Well, a game that I honestly was completely bamboozled by and befuddled by, and another B word that means confused by in the lead up to its release. I remember seeing the initial announcement, Big Mode Games, Donkey's thing, showing up and being like, hello, we're a publisher and here's our first game. It's by this guy named Billy Basso, and he's a solo developer, and here it is, it's Animal Well. And walking away from that being like, it looks cool, but I don't know what it is. And then that happened over and over again with trailer after trailer after trailer. And then I remember being at PAX East, and Big Mode had an Animal Well station set up, and there were like 12 people playing Animal Well, and I stood over the shoulder of one of them, and I just watched someone play Animal Well for like 10 minutes, and I just did not know what it was still. All I really needed to hear from anyone was that it's like Fez. If anyone was like, hey, this is like Fez, but you're like a little blob in a neon sewer, then I would probably be sold on it much faster. But Animal Well is a remarkable achievement, especially by a solo developer. Visually, sonically, mechanically, just like knocks it out of the park across the board. We've obviously gotten into a realm of this list where like every game is just exceptional, and Animal Well is no different. Even just the fact that the file size of the game is so small is remarkable. It's amazing. It's an amazing thing. That's Animal Well. Just go play it. I'm going to stop talking about it. Just go play it. Number 17 is Prince of Persia: The Lost Crown, a Metroidvania-inspired take on basically like a return to the roots version of what Prince of Persia was when it was first released. I mean, this game, like, first of all, it's clearly inspired by Hollow Knight, which is one of my like top 5 favorite games of all time, maybe even number 1, depending on what day you ask me. I think that probably would have been enough for me to check it out and enjoy it, but it was the demo that really sold me on it. And then when I downloaded the full game and I got my hands on it, first of all, it just feels amazing. I love the way the combat feels. I love the way movement feels, especially considering so many of these games start you at a place where you don't feel very good in the beginning until you get a couple more upgrades or whatever. I think Castlevania is like a constant with this trope in particular, being like, oh yeah, it's going to feel terrible to move around until you get the backdash. Then you get the backdash and it feels a lot better. Prince of Persia starts off feeling great and then just continues to feel better the more you play, including voiceover in Farsi is like such a cool addition and a thing that should always be in a Prince of Persia game. Once again, just like Visions of Mana, it's like reprehensible in a lot of ways that Ubisoft was like, okay, cool, great job making this game. We're going to shut the studio down. Unreal that they decided to do that, and it's in service of like a remake of Prince of Persia: The Sands of Time, which like I like that game. I think The Sands of Time is good, but I would much rather have many more of these than a remake of a game that you could just port to the Switch, for example, and let me play again. Kind of a bummer, but yeah, The Lost Crown like absolutely rules. Number 16 is Pokemon Emerald Sea Glass, which is a ROM hack of Pokemon Emerald, which may be surprising to see on this list, but I find as a person who really likes Pokemon, whenever I want to go back and like replay a Pokemon game, I'm always going back to the second generation. I just really love the vibe of Pokemon Crystal in general. So Emerald is a game that I've always enjoyed, but have never really like fully fallen in love with until I replayed it for an Into the Aether episode where we replayed like most of the Game Boy Advance library, which was a wild undertaking, but I walked away from that experience thinking that Emerald was the best game on the Game Boy Advance. Pokemon Emerald Sea Glass is a ROM hack that takes the art style of Gen 2 and applies it to Gen 3. So you have a kind of like Pokemon Crystal looking version of Pokemon Emerald, and then they add a bunch of other quality of life features and great stuff. Just things like the Dex Nav, which allow you to like see what Pokemon are kind of hiding in the grass around you, or things like the ability to capture every single Pokemon from the very beginning. So like every single Pokemon that can be caught in Pokemon Emerald is just available. They've also added a couple Pokemon here and there from like other generations, so Electabuzz's final evolution is available in this. It just really revitalized my love for Pokemon Emerald in a really big way, and I finished it, which is amazing. Like I was kind of surprised, honestly, that I went and finished Pokemon Emerald again after just completing it a couple of years ago for that Into the Aether episode. But Emerald Sea Glass just like it has the zhuzh, it has the je ne sais quoi. It really worked for me, and I think you should check it out if you're interested in replaying Emerald and you want kind of like a spicy new way of doing that. Emerald Sea Glass. Number 15 is Dragon's Dogma 2. Look, I'm a big Dragon's Dogma sicko, and I think the Dragon's Dogma sickos of the world were very, very, very vocal about how much we love Dragon's Dogma. And the lead up to Dragon's Dogma 2 was really exciting because it felt like the kind of game where if they were able to make it just a little bit more approachable to new players, you would have a game that people would write about as like, you loved Elden Ring, Dragon's Dogma 2 is the next game that you should play. And it wasn't that. That is not what happened with Dragon's Dogma 2. Instead, they made it like, they just made more Dragon's Dogma. And like, honestly, that was the right move, because this game is also going to be a cult classic the same way the first one was a cult classic. And I love that personally, but I know so many people played Dragon's Dogma 2 and just like totally hated it and walked away. And I think that's really sad, but I can also understand why that would be. I should talk about what I liked about it instead of just talking about the stuff surrounding it. So Dragon's Dogma 2, I think, does a really good job of being closer to a more complete version of what Dragon's Dogma 1 could have been. It looks beautiful, and it manages to make an open fantasy world that really wants to kill you at all times. And I think that will be exciting to some people and not exciting to other people. And I think it's worth mentioning that it wants to kill you in a way that's very different from Elden Ring. Because the Elden Ring comparisons, I think, are easy to make and I think are apt. Whereas Elden Ring is like, there are tough enemies everywhere who want to kill you, but, you know, if you are prepared, you will be able to take them out. Dragon's Dogma is like, if you leave the road at any point at night, even if you just leave the main city at night, you're probably going to die. Unless you like really have leveled up a lot and you've trained yourself a lot and your team is like solid, you'll probably die. There are things like, I'm going to get into the back of a wagon and go from city A to city B, and over the course of that period, a troll might show up or an ogre and just smash the cart to smithereens, and then I'm stranded and I'm going to die and I'm going to lose all this progress. That's going to happen a lot in Dragon's Dogma 2, and you need to be like ready for that. You need to be signed up for that, and if you're not, then the game's not going to be for you, and that's fine, but it was for me, and I'm amazed that it exists, and I'm glad that it exists. Shout out to Dragon's Dogma. Number 14 is Like a Dragon Infinite Wealth. I'm kind of a latecomer to the Yakuza franchise. I've only ever finished one of them, which is Yakuza Kiwami. It's the remake of the first one, but I've played like 30 to 40 to 50 hours of a lot of them. One of those games being Yakuza 7, Like a Dragon, which was the first game that didn't star Kiryu, but instead starred this new guy named Ichiban, who is like probably one of the best video game protagonists ever, alongside Kiryu, I would say. And that game was just filled with so much heart and had some like really interesting things to say about like society and Japanese society specifically. And Like a Dragon Infinite Wealth takes all of that and bundles it up and ships it to Hawaii. It's hard to overstate how much video game there is in Like a Dragon Infinite Wealth. There's an entire Animal Crossing in this thing called Dondoko Island that I probably spent 20 hours in, if I had to guess. There's an entire subplot that is just Pokemon. Like, you're just playing through the plot of Pokemon, but again, in Like a Dragon. I just need to shout from the rooftops how great this franchise is at every opportunity. I think what Yakuza and now Like a Dragon has done is just build upon itself in a way that makes it feel so rewarding to continue playing them. And you can jump in and play whatever one you want, definitely. You'll miss some stuff, of course, from a plot perspective. There are moments where like somebody will show up on screen and you'll feel like people should be clapping, but you don't know who they are, so c'est la vie. But if you do continue to play them, it is so rewarding. And I got to a point in Like a Dragon Infinite Wealth where I actually stopped playing because I got to a point where it felt like I was missing enough that I wanted to go back and play more of the original Yakuza games, which is what I'm doing now. That's why I finished Yakuza Kiwami, and that's why I'm playing Kiwami 2 now. This is just the franchise that keeps on giving, and I mean that literally, because there's another one coming out next year. There are 2 that came out this year. They just keep making these games at like an unbelievable clip. Yeah, great franchise. Number 13 is Emio the Smiling Man, Famicom Detective Club. Famicom Detective Club is a franchise that existed on, you guessed it, the Famicom, and they remade the 2 games for that franchise on the Nintendo Switch a couple of years ago. And I honestly thought they were fine. They were okay. I liked them. I didn't love them. They were kind of fun as like a curiosity in a lot of ways, but if you don't know them at all, they are visual novels that are detective games. Emio the Smiling Man is a completely new entry by the original creator of the Famicom Detective Club franchise, and it's one of the best stories in a video game this year, I would say. It was like really crushing to me that this didn't make it into the top 10 because I want to be a champion for this game so badly. I just think they've sanded off a lot of the edges of what I didn't like mechanically about the first 2 Famicom Detective Club remakes, I guess, on the Switch. From an art perspective, from a story perspective, and also from a gameplay perspective, I just think they like landed on a thing, on a formula that I hope to God, they continue forward. because if Emio the Smiling Man is any indication, Famicom Detective Club should be one of the best ongoing visual novel series of our time. Number 12 is 1000 Times Resist, a game that I really wish I could champion and put higher on this list and couldn't because I wasn't able to finish it in time, which is a bummer, because I really wanted to just like get on the same level as everybody else. Like everyone in my life is so effusive about why this game is great, and I've played enough of it to know why it's great, but having not seen the conclusion myself, I just didn't feel comfortable putting it any higher on my list than here. What is here as a first outing of this team, Sunset Visitor, is so emotionally like devastating in both positive and negative ways. This is a game that you could like write a dissertation about if you wanted to, and I think there would still be even more stuff to uncover. I'm excited to finish it on my own time, not when I'm like cramming it for Game of the Year, which is kind of why I stopped playing it at a certain point. Was like, I didn't want to play it out of obligation. I want to play it because I'm naturally curious about it. But 1000 Times Resist, great video game. You should play it if you haven't. It's on Switch, it's on PC, it's on a bunch of stuff. It's good. Great even. I'll say great. Number 11 is a game I can't believe exists and is very high up on my list, which is Shy Guy Surfing. It's a game where you are a shy guy and you are surfing on a magic carpet, and it's kind of like Flappy Bird in some ways, but also it is using a bunch of assets from Mario and Sonic the Hedgehog and a bunch of other things that I don't want to spoil, and is some of the most fun I've had playing a video game this year, definitely. Mostly because of how surprising it is, mostly because of how brazen it is, like ripping off a bunch of stuff. But at the core of it, it's because it's just like a blast. It is free because it has to be, or else I imagine the creator would just like have every single cease and desist lawyer hit them up simultaneously. Go check it out. Shy Guy Surfing. That takes us to number 10 as the sun goes down for the day. Number 10 for me is Earth Defense Force 6. This is a franchise that I've like always wanted to get into. It's been recommended to me many times, and I just did not check it out until this year. Interesting to check it out in the same year as Helldivers 2. Helldivers 2, I think, is, brilliant in a lot of ways. I think what it manages to do in terms of like being a live service game, in terms of like visual fidelity, in terms of art direction, there's so much going on with Helldivers 2 that is like commendable and cool and great, and I had a very good time with it. But something about Earth Defense Force feeling like a PS3 game, being a sequel to a game I haven't played, having about 1.5 million missions, and taking 10 hours for the title screen to show up and say, "Welcome to Earth Defense Force 6." All of that stuff just like really, really added to this mystique in my head that made me want to not put this game down. I ended up playing through the first like 40 or 50 missions on both PS5 and PC this year for no other reason than I wanted to, and I didn't mind doing it. The way traversal works, like being able to jetpack around or whatever, depending on what class you are, the way that weapon upgrades work, and just the sheer scope and shock and awe of some of these missions. Every once in a while walking into a mission and being like, oh yeah, there's only a couple ants here, and then something that looks a lot like Godzilla shows up. It's just amazing what they're able to pull off here in terms of size and scope, and making you feel constantly like you are backed up against a wall and like you're about to die at any moment. The online play is remarkably fun, especially as somebody who plays mostly solo. But when I didn't play solo, when I played with other people, I also had a great time. Earth Defense Force 6 is another one that I don't think is going to be for everyone. I actually think I would recommend Helldivers 2 to more people, probably. But Earth Defense Force 6 really, really got its hooks into me this year. And this is one of those cases where you just need to acknowledge how much time you spent with a game and then ask yourself what that means. And for me, it means that Earth Defense Force 6 was something very special for me. I'm glad I played as much of it as I did, and I will play a lot more of it. Number 9 is Gun Show. Gun Show is a roguelike in the most classic sense, in that it is a grid-based game. Enemies only move after you've made your move. And if you die, that's it. You start from the beginning. There is nothing that carries over into the next run. Gun Show is on PC, iOS, and Android. And I played this game so much on my phone that I went from having an experience where I was like, I don't know if this is quite for me. I think I like it, but I don't know if I love it, to this is like the only thing I'm doing all the time. Anytime I'm on the subway, I'm playing Gun Show. I think there's a lot of brilliant stuff going on here. For example, the grid is hex-based. So what that means is that there are enemies coming at you from 6 different sides. Simultaneously, you have a revolver, and in that revolver are 6 bullets, each of them technically facing towards one of those 6 sides. And you can shoot in any of those directions and take out the enemies that are coming at you, and all the enemies have their own special abilities, like a guy who will lasso you and pull you, or a guy who will try to kick a bear trap at you, or just a person with another gun who can shoot you from 2 spaces away, for example. And needing to account for all of that and maneuvering yourself in different ways that allows you to, set up situations where the enemies are shooting or killing each other, or ways in which you can blow up an explosive barrel that knocks one guy into another guy that kills both of them, or things like that. Just create this almost physics-based puzzle box that you just need to solve. If this sounds like a game for you, I would recommend giving Guncho a bunch of time, because it took me a while to step away from the idea that the game is too random. I started to lock into the idea that I just need to think about my moves much more carefully than I would in something like Spelunky that feels very quick and reactionary. Guncho is a game where you're supposed to stare at the grid for as long as it takes to make the right move. And for that, I love it. And for that reason, it will always be downloaded on my iPhone, pretty much forever. Number 8 is the best PlayStation game of the year. It is also the Game Awards game of the year. It is Astrobot. Astrobot is a platformer in the style of an old school, N64, PS1 era platformer, like a Crash Bandicoot or a Super Mario 64, where you are a little robot and you're running around trying to collect other little robots who are all dressed like PlayStation characters. It is just a joy from beginning to end. If you're a person who got the PS5 and got Astro's Playroom, you probably played through that, and like everybody else who played it, thought, man, they should make a full game out of this. And not only did they, but they made one of the best platformers probably of all time in so doing. I think there's something to be said about this game being like a big advertisement for games you can't play anymore and teams that have been shut down, but at the core of it, I just really, really, really loved what Astrobot had on offer. I think that this game is an absolute dream, and I think if PlayStation Studios is smart, they will continue to give Team Asobi whatever they want to keep making more of these, kind of in perpetuity. It feels to me like after years and years and years of trying different mascots, whether it be Crash Bandicoot or Sackboy from Little Big Planet, Astrobot is the one. If you're an executive at PlayStation Studios, Astrobot is the one. Just lean into Astrobot. He is your guy. Give Team Asobi everything they want. Keep them happy, and they will continue bringing you hits. Number 7 is Metaphor Refantasio, a game where by the time I made this list and put it together and finalized all the rankings, I had played about 25 to 30 hours of, somewhere in that vicinity, and really, really, really enjoyed, but similarly to 1,000 Times Resist, so just didn't have the time to be able to finish it, or else it probably would have been higher, realistically. Metaphor Refantasio is amazing as just kind of Atlas being able to come to the table and say, we have shown how successful we can be at making turn-based RPGs with games like Shin Megami Tensei and the Persona franchise. And here is our entry into Final Fantasy and Dragon Quest. We want to make a high fantasy RPG in the vein of those that feels so Atlas. And they knocked it out of the park. What they've done with the combat in terms of removing some of the things that make Shin Megami Tensei and Persona combat feel like, Atlas-y combat, and have added new elements like the turn icons, and God, it's just so good. This is a moment where I should mention that I have been playing this game again from the beginning on the ROG Ally X. I was playing this on my Xbox, but now my fiance is playing it on the Xbox, and just to give her free reign of the Xbox whenever she wants to play Metaphor. I'm playing this again. I started from the beginning. I am now further than I was when I put this list together, and the game just keeps getting better and better and better. I think if you're a person who has played Shin Megami Tensei and Persona, you've already played Metaphor, and I don't need to sell it to you, but if you're a person who's interested in Persona or Shin Megami Tensei, and you're wondering if Metaphor is a good place to start, I think it is. It's a long game. Keep that in mind, but you're going to have a really, really wonderful time making your way through that world. That's not to say it's all sunshine and rainbows, because it very much isn't. The world is very dark. It's about an election, and it came out during an election year, and that's going to make a lot of people feel a lot of ways, but it's about some very real stuff. It's about people in power who use those who are disenfranchised as pieces on a chessboard to grab even more power and wealth for themselves. It's about what you can do as a person to fight against that. It's about the role that stories play in our world. It's about so many things, and at least from what I've seen, it's sticking the landing for the most part. I'll see how it wraps up, and I haven't really heard what people have to say about that, but I'm excited to get there for myself, play more Metaphor, because it's great. I'm going to give myself a little bit of a break on this one because I've been talking for so long and my voice is starting to get shot. And number 6 is The Legend of Zelda Echoes of Wisdom, another game that I have an entire video review about, which you can go watch. I'll just say this, I still like it as much as I did when I made that video. Number 5 is Indiana Jones and the Great Circle. I'm a huge Indiana Jones fan. My fiance and I both dressed like Indiana Jones for Halloween. Mostly because we were thinking, like, what would be a funny couple's costume? And then I don't remember which of us said it, but one of us said, what if we were both Indiana Jones? And then we were like, cool, that's it. And we didn't talk about it anymore. We just both got hats and dressed up like Indiana Jones for Halloween. But I've been watching Indiana Jones since I was a little kid. I used to walk to the library in my town and take out the VHS tapes of the 3 Indiana Jones movies and just watch them over and over and over and over again. I love those movies so much. They're like the closest thing I have to being kind of like an unhinged fan of something. And it brings me so much joy to say that Indiana Jones and the Great Circle is as good as it is. The brilliance of taking a character who is known for thinking on his feet and being kind of like quippy, but also being so unbelievably lucky, and turning that experience of watching him on a screen into playing as him in an immersive sim in particular is so smart, because it allows you to just interact with everything in the world and have things like usually just kind of work out in your favor. And honestly, what Machine Games has done here on the whole, I think is so brilliant, because in a world where games like Tomb Raider, you know, either the old ones or the reboot or the Uncharted franchise have kind of like eaten Indiana Jones's lunch by like saying, hey, this is an Indiana Jones game, but you're playing as somebody else. Indiana Jones has now carved out his own spot alongside them. You know, those two games are about different things, and Indiana Jones is about something else. And I think that that's great that all 3 of those can live side by side. Are they making more Tomb Raider games? I don't know. Are they making more Uncharted games? I don't know. But at least based on the rumor mill and some recent reports, it seems like they're going to make more Indiana Jones games. And that's really exciting to me as a person who loves Indiana Jones, and maybe to you too. It's great. And it's also on Game Pass. So like, just go check it out regardless of what you're doing. Go have a good time. Okay, speaking of the things that I am an unhinged fan of, the other one that's not Indiana Jones is Dragon Quest, and my number 4 game of the year is Dragon Quest III HD 2D Remake. I don't want to say this one came out of nowhere because I announced it like many years ago, on my birthday actually, and I was really excited about it from the beginning because all I've heard as a person who's been getting into Dragon Quest over the past couple of years is like, Dragon Quest III is the one that really took off and made the franchise what it is today. And the idea of them remaking that game with the HD 2D engine that Octopath Traveler has popularized, I think was a really exciting prospect, you know, on the outset. And in execution is like one of my favorite RPGs I played in the past couple of years. Dragon Quest III, just the core of what they had on offer in that game is still very much present here. All they've really done is just like literally gloss up the visuals, add some orchestrated music, a couple quality of life improvements here and there, like, you know, a little circle that shows you on a mini map where you're supposed to go next. If you want it, you can also turn that off. And a couple other things here and there, like an extra class that you can have in your party. But for the most part, the core of what made Dragon Quest III special is still present here. And you can go back and play the original Dragon Quest III, which is the thing that I've gone and done. I played like probably 5 or 6 hours of the original Dragon Quest III, the Game Boy Color version specifically, and had just as good a time with it. And I think it goes to show how much they got right in that game and how Dragon Quest III just became foundationally important for every other turn-based RPG that came after it. Interestingly, about 2024, I also went and played the first Dragon Quest, I guess Dragon Warrior technically, but I played Dragon Quest 1 also, the Game Boy version. And I played through that entire game, and even that one, I walked away feeling like, it's amazing how much they got right. It's amazing how much they were able to accomplish in that first outing. But Dragon Quest III adds so many more elements of what we know to be a Dragon Quest game in terms of the way the story is told, and even the idea of telling a story in general is so successful. And the remake is amazing. I love it so much. It's like the perfect video game to play when you're having a bad day or something and you just come home and you get to throw that game on and just kind of get lost and like grind for a while, or, you know, explore, and you're gonna have a good time with it. I've had a great time with it. My number 3 game of 2024 is Balatro. What do you even say about Balatro? Balatro is immediately one of the best roguelikes of all time. It's definitely one of the 2 best deck-building roguelikes of all time. It's like this and Slay the Spire, battling it out forever. It's also very quickly become one of the best mobile games of all time because it came out and then a couple months later also released on Apple Arcade and just iOS Standard and Android. So you can also play it on your phone, which I have talked to a lot of people and they say, I will not download this because this is dangerous. And I downloaded it and guess what? It is dangerous and I play it all the time and it's still great. I am constantly battling between this and Guncho on what do I open on my phone. It really depends on when I'm on the subway. Am I standing and holding onto a handrail? Then I have to hold my phone vertically and then I can play Guncho. But if I get a seat, I'm playing Balatro. Honestly, for all that you could say about the Game Awards, I walked away very happy that Balatro just got a lot of eyes on it because seeing people go online and type in what is Balatro and then seeing people on TikTok and YouTube and stuff posting I can't believe I had never played this game before and now I'm playing it and now it's tomorrow. I started playing this in the morning and now it's the next day. I love seeing that. I mean, obviously take breaks, don't just play Balatro for 12 hours straight, but I understand why you would because it's one of the best games of the year and one of the best games of the past couple of years, I would say. Not every game needs to be the giant AAA thing. There's room for that, definitely. Don't get me wrong. There's definitely room for the big AAA experience, but sometimes a game like Balatro can take over the world, and that's really, really, really exciting. Number 2, and the reason I'm talking about 50 games in this very long video, probably, if I'm looking at how long I've been recording for, is UFO 50. Another one that I have a full video review of, and I really stand by everything I said there. I think UFO 50 is a masterpiece. I think UFO 50 is an unbelievable accomplishment. It's amazing that that group of people sat down, had that idea, and then saw it all the way through to the end. It is so unbelievably ambitious to even make 50 full games like that, but to have them intertwine and interconnect in the ways that they do, to invent a bunch of fake developers who made those games, and you can see the thought processes that all of those developers had and all the ideas they wanted to get out and how they continue to spring up from games like Barbuda to Mooncat and onwards. It's remarkable, and I think it's one of those things where I just need to sit back and feel lucky that it exists and feel lucky that I played it when I did and I got to experience it and it connected with me on the level that it does. I'm still making my way through that game. I've played all 50 games to some extent, but I am now at the point where I'm trying to get gold and cherry carts for all of them, which basically just means you finish the game or you did something very secret and cool or special in that game that's very difficult. Yeah, UFO 50 just invites so much exploration, so much curiosity, and I think it's worth checking out no matter what for any kind of person, because you will find the thing that you like in this game. As I said in that video, if Party House had been released by itself, it would have made my top 10 list, and that is still true, which of course makes it very difficult to rank where UFO 50 should land in a top 10 list, but for me, it is number 2. It is my number 2 favorite game of the year. It's fitting that the sun has almost gone down entirely because my number 1 game of the year is Persona 3 Reload. I think it's worth mentioning at the top how much weird overlap there is between my own life and the life of the protagonist in this game. I had the same hairstyle. I looked very similar. I was in the same year of high school as the protagonist in the year that this game takes place in the late 2000s. I worked at a cafe, and I think at the core of it, I had undiagnosed depression, and I didn't know how to deal with it. I didn't have the words for it. I didn't even really know that that was a possibility, but it was a thing that I was grappling with and a thing that I didn't understand. And this game is about a group of people who fight back against something called apathy syndrome. The way that they do that is by assembling the X-Men in some ways and rushing into this big, horrible tower and fighting night after night hordes and hordes and hordes and hordes of enemies in these floors that just feel so monotonous. One of the brilliant things about Persona 3 Reload is that they use that monotony to their advantage. Persona 3 really is about time. It's the first game to use the calendar system that the franchise just became known for after this one, but it uses it in a way that really intertwines it with the narrative and the message that they're trying to impart onto the player, and one that really hit me pretty hard, if I'm being completely honest. While the idea of running into the same dungeon throughout the course of the entire game over and over and over again seems like it might get boring and monotonous, it becomes a joy. Enough of a joy, in fact, that some of the characters start to bemoan the fact that you're almost towards the top of the tower by the time the end of the game comes about. And you as the player will also feel that way. You as the player will be like, man, I'm going to miss this when it's over. And that's a wild thing to think, because when you're on floor like 35 or 55 and you're like, man, is this really all this is? You never in a million years would think, eventually I'm going to miss this. And that focus on how time changes us applies to pretty much every aspect of the game. It applies to the relationships that we have with others. When you move into the dorm room at the beginning of the game, most of the people who live there don't really speak to you or even like you that much. They find you like quiet and kind of weird. And it's through the course of continuing to spend time with them, you know, through the social links and the confidants, that they start to open up and become people who really care for and appreciate you and want you in their life. It's the perfect marriage of these ideas between what do I do on a day-by-day basis, like who do I hang out with, how high do I climb in the Tower of Tartarus, what personality traits am I going to improve by working at which place or doing what recreational activity, taking that idea and merging it with the overall arc of the game, the overall theme of what they want you to be feeling, that makes it, in my eyes, the best Persona game, definitely, bar none, not even a contest, really. And I understand that all the stuff I'm talking about was present in the original Persona 3, but it took the remake with Reload to get me to play it, because for years I had been told, you know, there was Persona 3, the Persona 3 Fez, and the Persona 3 Portable, and they all have different things going on, but there's no definitive version. And ironically, while Reload isn't a definitive version either, it is the one that came out this year, and it is the one that got me to sit down and play it, and I could not stop playing it until it was over. And when it was over, I felt like I had such a profound experience that I think it really actually changed my life in like a real way. I am thinking about the way I spend my time and spend my days differently because of the experience of playing Persona 3 Reload. Every morning I wake up and the core message of Persona 3 Reload is so deeply ingrained in my heart and in my mind that I really do fret in a good way about how I'm spending my time, what I'm doing, who I'm giving myself over to. And it's really like radically changed my outlook on everything. And there are so few moments in life when you get to experience a piece of media that does that to you. And when it does, you just need to like completely open yourself up to it, like I did with this game. I don't want to say too much more about it, because I think saying more about what happens towards the end of this game would be giving too much away, but the ending of the game will hit you like a freight train if you connect with it, even remotely close to the level that I did, and you will then understand why it is my #1 game of 2024. Oh my god, that's it. That's my top 50. Thank you so much for being here. Thank you so much for watching. I know it's been a while since my last video. I'm going to get a lot more active in the new year with this channel, so stay tuned for that. You'll understand why eventually. But for now, if you're subscribed to the channel, thank you for subscribing. If you're not subscribed and you've made it all the way to the end, oh my god, maybe think about subscribing. Stick around. There's a lot more stuff coming. Go check out the Into the Aether Game of the Year episode if you haven't as well. And I'll catch you in the next one. Thank you so much for being here. It really means so much. Bye, everybody.